What is the scariest thing you've ever seen while driving at night? Before we begin, do us a favor by clicking that like button, and subscribe to our channel for more top Reddit stories every day. I used to deliver pizza, and often had deliveries right at midnight when we closed. One time, late at night, I'm driving back to the store through a small neighborhood. Up ahead I see something. It's perfectly spherical, bright, shiny thing, just hovering about 6 feet off the ground, not moving at all. I pull up very slowly, still doesn't move. Still can't comprehend what I'm looking at. Just this shiny hovering orb in the road at midnight. At this point my curiosity has overridden my fear. I'm the guy in the horror movie who dies first because I just got to know. Either I die or I get a cool story, right? So I hop out of the car, and slowly walk up to it. I'm right in front of it and still can't understand what I'm seeing. So I reach out and touch it. It's a balloon. One of those foil birthday balloons with the street lights shining on it, making it look weird out of context in the middle of the night on an empty road. This is my favorite response because it feels like exactly how I would react. Yep, had a few of these moments in my life, where it's like for a moment my brain has temporarily disconnected all memories that would place the object, and I'm left in a state of complete childlike wonder. And then my brain comes back online. I slammed the brakes once because I saw a deer in my peripheral vision. Upon closer inspection, it was a mounted deer head on a stick in the middle of the woods. Slammed the gas after I realized that might have been a setup by game wardens to catch illegal poachers at night. What do they do? Sit somewhere and watch, or do they usually have cameras set up? In my state they sit hidden down the road. They got these mechanical deer things that look pretty real, and they try to get people to shoot them, and then they get arrested for poaching, I guess. Maybe not poaching, but they'll definitely seize your firearms and give you a hefty fine for shooting from a vehicle, which I believe is illegal in every state, but I could be wrong about that. Yes, you can't shoot within 50 yards of a road, and you can't shoot out of a vehicle. I was on I-70 in Colorado going towards Utah, pulled over at a gas station at 8 p.m. Fueling up, I noticed a couple of attractive women pumping gas. On the other side of the pump was the man in his late 40s, just staring at these young women without notice of anything else going on around him. I walk inside to go grab some food for the next few hours of driving. When I come out I see both the younger women's car and the older man's truck are gone. I decided to hang out at the gas station for the next hour to catch a little sleep before hitting the road again. After driving for a few hours, I was speeding heavy. I pull over at yet another gas station. The young women are there getting gas and eating some food on a picnic table. Looked like they had been there for a while. I didn't see any sign or the man in the truck, but can't say I was looking very hard for it. Well, here is where it got creepy as hell. Can't say I didn't stare at them a bit. I mean, they were good looking women. As I am watching them leave, I see in the next parking lot over some headlights turn on, and it's the same man as before. He leaves when the women leave once again. Okay, that's a bit weird, but could just be a coincidence as there weren't many places to pull over. I leave a few minutes later and catch up to them. Now this guy is riding their ass with his high beams on. I decided to slow down and stay a distance behind the truck. 10 minutes or so later the women pull over once again to most likely get this guy off their ass. With a sign of relief the truck keeps going and I continue on my way. About 1 mile down the road the guy just pulls off to the side of the highway. So I pull off a mile or so down the road again. Sure enough, the women drive by and the guy is still following them. At this point we are out in the middle of nowhere and too many coincidences have happened. I called the cops to alert them, and about 15 minutes the cops pulled the guy over. I could have just seen too many horror movies that started like this and overreacted, but you never know. Better safe than sorry. We appreciate you. Butchered horse laying in the road. Someone had completely skinned and butchered a horse, took the choice pieces of meat, and just dumped it on the highway. I almost crashed into it. WTF. I'm guessing it fell out of their truck on their way to dump it, or else they hit it on the road by accident and decided not to waste the meat. I've seen this happen with deer but never a horse. I assumed that they stole the horse. I was driving home late one night and was driving on a dark stretch of the highway. Suddenly a body was in front of me. I tried to swerve out of the way but it was too late. My bumper was hanging on the ground. The guy died, and I went to a nearby gas station not knowing what to do. Was 18. When the tow truck pulled my car up onto it, there were a bunch of blood and guts on the bottom. I couldn't get that image out of my head. Apparently a drunk driver with 5 DWIs had hit a guy on the motorcycle prior. For years after I had serious depression and thought about it every night before sleep. That's awful. I can't imagine that. So sorry. Thank you. I think for the most part I've gotten past it, but it was rough for a long time and was hard to deal with everyday life. When times are hard, it's hard to hope. And though you've worked with care to cope, I know you know, but all the same, it's plain to see you're not to blame.
I have a really good memory, but I hold back a lot on it because it can weird people out when you remember random things that happened months or years ago. First day of class, 9th grade. I sit next to a girl, we begin chat. I casually mention that she and I went to the SO and summer club. And her younger brother's name is Matt and he's a funny, good kid. And her mom is a diving instructor, right? She never sat next to me again or spoke to me. That was the day I learned to keep that shit to myself instead of vomiting out everything I were about someone. I made this mistake on a first date once. I realized way through dinner that I used to ex-wife. They had gone to Vegas and got married in one of those cheesy chapels with an Elvis impersonator and she had brought the album to work. In retrospect, I don't think it was terrible for me to mention I remembered working with her, but I probably shouldn't have went into such detail. I remembered, including when she told us they were getting divorced a year after they got married. Oh well, we wouldn't have been good together anyway, so one date was more than enough.
A hitchhiker almost leaping out in front of my car on a dark forest road late at night. The woman literally popped out of nowhere, had to drift into the oncoming lane. Luckily there was no one else and painted median there. Read a police report that she ended up getting hit minutes after I drove by. She was intoxicated and running from the police. Pretty fucking creepy. I hope she's alright. I can't imagine what the driver that hit her was thinking. Had a similar thing, but it was a suicide attempt. He put his shirt over his head so he couldn't see and jumped out in front of our car. We missed him by inches. Also we were young, dumb and drunk. We would have been jailed for years I'm sure. Having someone jump in front of my car is one of my greatest fears. Anytime there's someone walking along the side of the road I get tense and watch them like a hawk. The psychological stress something like that would bring is unimaginable for me. Not to mention the potential of getting in legal trouble if the law found you at any sort of fault. That happens to me except with dogs instead. I'm terrified that a dog will suddenly run out into the road in front of my car. Edit, other animals as well. I just have encountered more situations with dogs. While traveling east just outside Flagstaff, Arizona around midnight I was in the fast lane doing about 80 miles per hour. There was a bend in the road and you could see the headlights of the westbound lanes filter in between the trees. It was funny because I thought the lights kinda looked like they were coming at me, then they really were. I screamed obscenities and jerked the wheel just in time to let a speeding wrong-way driver fly by me in the lane I was just in. After skidding to a stop in the shoulder I called the cops to report it. Could you describe the vehicle? Yes, it was a dark blur with headlights. Wait, did they literally go through the median filled with trees? How does that even happen? No, they must have gotten onto the interstate from an off-ramp. The lights from the other direction were dim and somewhat far away as the highway was divided by about 100. When I saw the headlights coming for me I briefly thought it was from the other side of the highway, but I realized just in time that it was a collision course. Similar thing happened to me in Corpus Christi. Driving a bunch of sleeping drunk people home at 2 a.m. about to get off on my exit and this big truck comes screaming up the off-ramp. I slammed the brakes and the truck swerved, slammed into the concrete barrier, then drove off down the highway in the wrong direction. Talking to the cops was tough with a bunch of scared drunks freaking out in the back. Driving to work at 4:30 a.m. and seeing a cyclist with his head split open and brains on the road. My friend and I were walking home at about 2 a.m. one night about 15 years ago. We see this car going in the opposite direction, clearly going way past the speed limit. As he's passing us, we see him go up on the curb and hit someone walking on the opposite sidewalk, decapitating them. This was before we had cell phones and everything was closed because it was such a tiny town. We ran as fast as we could to the nearest house, about 15 to 20 minutes away, and banged on their door until they opened it so we could call the cops. I still see it in my sleep sometimes. Saw a large pickup truck hit a pedestrian which sent them flying about 20 feet forward. The truck then ran the person over and kept going. I was a teenager and didn't have a phone. I remember knocking on a random person's door for help, crying and yelling. I think the guy at the door probably thought someone was trying to murder me. Did they catch the driver? I'm not 100% sure. I've been trying to forget about it and block every detail out of my mind. I don't know if this is really scary, but it definitely freaked me out for a moment. Driving home from grad lab for a couple hours of sleep, about 4 in the morning, longish, time-sensitive experiment, not dawn yet, still pitch black. Turn a corner, and suddenly, someone runs into the street right in front of my car and stops. I stop. I wait. They don't move. Cautiously, I try to drive around. They scream, run up and slam their hands on the hood of my car. With them so close, I realize they are totally naked and filthy. They stare at me for a moment, then proceeds to run in wide circles, kinda listing to one side than the other, in front of my car. After about 2 minutes of this, he lists hard to one side, far enough I felt safe quickly driving around them, very wide, on the other side that was now open. Meth man. Edit, I had no idea this counted as scary. I thought I was being a baby, being scared when I had been, haha. Quick answers. This is PCP, not meth. I genuinely don't know my hard drugs, guys. I'm very sorry. I just know meth was / is the drug of choice of the city. They, sorry, gender neutral singular, not multiple people. I didn't know the gender until he got closer, and I guess they is what I think in my head until I'm sure. WTF is listing? I genuinely thought this was a common term. I guess I read weird crap as a kid. Of course this is scary. I'm originally from Russia. This is, a lot more common there than here, I guess. When I told people in my lab, they were just like, oh, yeah. One time, similar story here, so I thought I was being a baby. Also, I think people are confused and I guess this changes the level of scary. But I'm a girl,